Welcome to the 393 Legacy of Gorilla podcast. With me today, we have Spencer Cope on the podcast, and we'll get to Spencer in a minute. But a little sneak peek into next week and what's happening. It is that time of the year. We turn the calendar, and it will be April next week at this time. We have Good Friday off with Easter coming up on Sunday. And so there are several activities that will be in full swing next week, starting with track meets. We've got our first high school meet that will travel down to Heston, followed by junior high. It goes to Sterling on Thursday. We've got golf meets in Harrington, both varsity and JV, on Tuesday and Thursday. We've got Wheat State League art. So the art will take all of their wonderful artifacts down to center for the judging down there for the Wheat State League art. And it might say on there Harrington on the calendar, but that's not right. It is actually in Lost Springs Center. So, and the reason for that is forensics will be at Harrington this year. So that's a little sneak peek into next week. Like I said, it is April, which means it is a mad dash to the finish with activities almost every single night of the week. So we'll hopefully get a chance to see you at a track meet, a golf meet, or maybe even at league art, let's hope. So let's switch gears now and let's visit with Spencer a little bit. Spencer, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
You might let the listeners know, a little awkward, I understand, with being your dad, but you might tell the rest of the listeners who your mom is. I mean, everybody knows who your dad is. No, everybody knows who your mom is. But no, tell them a little bit about yourself, and then, of course, make sure you talk about your mom.
Yeah, my mom is Kelly Cope. She's a PE teacher here as well. And then I got 3 younger siblings, so the oldest.
Awesome. And we moved here when you were in?
3rd grade.
3rd grade. And so had the opportunity to grow up and move through the system, of course. We start every podcast a little bit different, and usually it's a little bit of a reflection and talk about what their future plans are. And so if you're watching on YouTube right now, you see the little smile on his face, and it's because his mom and dad are probably both anxious to see what he's going to answer. But we'll get to that one a little bit later on what he's going to do. And it's okay. There's still people that are undecided. I think the parents get a little bit more anxious, which is true. But tell us a little bit about maybe some of your favorite moments as you have and memories growing up here in Solomon.
My mind immediately goes to just sports-wise, going to state in basketball my sophomore year, and then obviously my success in golf throughout high school. Those are probably some of my favorites. Probably winning state last year would be my favorite. But outside of the sports world, nothing really school-related. I just enjoy the weekends, obviously, and just going out with my friends and going out to eat and doing stuff together. So.
We'll get back to the sports in a little bit and your friends, your boys, maybe a little bit later. Since you've been here since 3rd grade, and most memories start, 2nd, 3rd grade and up, and it's sometimes hard to go back to your kindergarten memories. But was there maybe a teacher or two that you'd like to give a shout out? Because I think at this time, it's a great time to give credit where credit's due, and it's to our amazing staff and teachers who have helped you get to where you are. So anybody you'd like to give a shout out to?
Mrs. Kilgore was my elementary math teacher, 5th and 6th grade, and also Mrs. Schumar was my math teacher in 4th grade as well. And both of them just kind of made me kind of get out of my shell a little bit and enjoy. They had a good way of incorporating math into fun way of doing math. No one really likes doing it, so I think they did a good job of.
They found a way to make it interesting.
Yeah. I guess you could say that.
Mrs. Schumar will love that, and so will Mrs. Kilgore. And Mrs. Kilgore has taken her passion and is using it to help with our math intervention, and has done an amazing job there. So make sure you give them a shout out. Now, as you transition to high school, you might let the listeners know a little bit about, as you're a senior, you get unique opportunities. And I want you to talk a little bit about the opportunity that you have right now, and tell them a little bit about what Dickinson County CEO is and what you do in that program.
Yeah, CEO is an entrepreneurship class that you can take if you're in Dickinson County, and I think it's probably the most important class that I've taken throughout high school. Just you get real-world experience and stuff that you aren't going to learn in a classroom. And if you don't like normal assignments, I mean, it's the class for you. If you have any interest in running a business or owning your own business, it's definitely a class that I would take.
So the listeners may not know a little bit about what that Dickinson County CEO and what that real world experience that we talk about is. And so take them through just a week and a quick snapshot of what that week looks like in that class.
Right now we're working on our personal business. I'm doing a sports podcast that I'm going to be working on. And then usually probably around this time, 2 days of the week we go and visit other businesses around the county and just learn their history and how they do things around there and what they do to keep employees happy and all that. And then Friday is kind of a reflective day. That's usually when you have your assignment or your journal, your weekly journal.
Your reflection journal.
Yeah, your reflection journal, and you just kind of write in there, what you learned and the lessons you can take with you.
So you're taking the things that you learned from the business owners in Dickinson County. And the thing that I think is so awesome about it is, with both your mom and I growing up in Dickinson County and having you guys come back and grow up in Dickinson County has been been very important for your mom and I. And I think what we realize is that program has really brought out, I hope in your eyes, is that you can leave, but you can also come back and you can be successful. You can be very successful. You've had the opportunity to meet some millionaires and some multimillionaires who run very, very successful businesses, and you wouldn't even know it if you saw them because you see them on a day-to-day basis out there. Might talk a little bit about I want to go back a little bit on that, and it's not about CEO, but I know you're one of the first ones, you and Colton Walker last year, and so hopefully we'll have some more this next year. But as we move forward, one of the things that you had to do was a team business as a group, a class business, and so you might talk about it and what that was.
Yeah, so we start a class business. We have to either make a product or put on an event that will allow us to have some money for it to start our class business. And we started that probably early October, somewhere around there. And we ended up, we have like 3 months to just completely start an event, start planning it, start running it. And we decided to do a concert with Logan Mize in early January. And my class selected me as a co-CEO, so it was kind of that leadership role that I've had to take on and just make sure everyone's doing their job, but also I'm doing my job as well.
So we had the discussion at home. You know where this is going. So as far as that CEO goes, you might let the listeners know that sometimes it's not always fun either. So without calling the person's name out, but what's something that you still at this time, and it was back in January when you had the event, what is something that you've had to deal with as the CEO, even though it was delegated to someone else? Yeah,
our financial guy, he was kind of in charge of handling all the money, make sure everyone's paid. And, there's some people that needed to be paid and still hasn't been done. So as a CEO, you kind of have to get on to them about it and be a little mean, but at the end of the day, it's just
And if not, you got to go do it yourself.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
I think those are putting, teenagers in a position of leadership. And like I said, this program, they ran it all. They sold all the tickets. They did all the contracts, everything. And so it's a great program. So to our listeners, I would encourage every single Solomon student to apply and hopefully be a part of the program. Going back, is there any high school teachers? We talked about elementary teachers. Any high school teachers that you may want to mention? Teachers, coaches, anybody to give a shout out to?
Teacher-wise, I'll go to Dr. Guy. She was my freshman math teacher. She kind of helped me just come out of my shell, especially as a freshman, always nervous. And, she's any questions I had, whether it was about math or, just life in general, she's been a good role model and mentor for me to look up to. And then coach-wise, Coach Stein coached basketball from sophomore to now, and he's definitely been a role model for me and someone I've looked up to since day one.
Those are two special people, and we've got several, but those are two that you've given a shout out to that I obviously as your dad, I can actually see the influence that both them, the positive influence that they've had in your life, and kudos to them for having that impact, not only on you but on others in our school, of course. Switching gears back to maybe you alluded to the sophomore going as a sophomore to state, and how several of our seniors have mentioned that, not just basketball players, but it was just a cool community experience. You might talk about golf, though, and I only bring that up because that is something that Jake brought up the pressures of state golf, and I laughed because just him telling the story and having been there and watched him and knowing the nervousness. Talk about you've been fortunate enough to qualify your freshman, sophomore, and junior year of state golf, but talk a little bit about the golf experience and what that's actually like to be at state and what it took to actually come out on top.
Yeah, it's a crazy environment, and it's probably the most nervous I've ever been sports-wise is when you're going up, lining up for first tee shot at a state tournament. We got everyone watching you and they announce your name. There's a lot of nerves there, but after that, it just feels like a normal round of golf to me, and I feel like just having that mental game is probably more important. You hear a lot about how golf's a lot more mental than you think it is, and if you can get your mental I guess health around that, then it'll make the game a lot more easy. But yeah.
So you've had a little bit of success in basketball and golf, and not that one's more important than the other, but forget about which one's most important. But what have they taught you? And they both have probably taught you. You talked about the mental game as far as golf. What have they taught you that you'll be able to take with you beyond the walls of Solomon, and where life may take you in the future? What lessons have you learned in those two sports?
Probably just battling through adversity. Mostly, just life is gonna bring you some certain scenarios or shots that you're just going to have to deal with, and getting back up from those. That's pretty much it. Yeah,
junior year, going through breaking the arm to coming back and, even that year, then winning state. That's an accomplishment there. Future plans. Look, he's shaking his head. His mom and dad are both on the edge of our seats waiting. No, it's okay. You don't have to tell us, but tell the listeners what you're thinking about doing. You don't have necessarily a decision made yet, but you might talk about what you're going to go into, what made you come to that conclusion, and then what are you narrowing down your choices to?
I'm going to go to some college and major in the business field, whether that's finance or marketing. I'm not exactly sure yet on that. As for what college, that's also up in the air as well. I'd like to go play either college golf or basketball, but just going to school is also an option as well. So I don't know, we'll just have to see. Hopefully to make a decision here in the next couple weeks. But
I've heard that before, I think. I've heard it will make a decision in the next couple of weeks. No, I'm being honest. It's okay. It's whenever it happens, it happens. And that's probably the question that every high school senior that's going to college, and some are going straight to the workforce and have some amazing jobs already lined up, which is great too. I don't want it to be that. But for yourself or for anybody that's going to college and hasn't made that decision, that's the number one question everybody's tired of hearing is, where are you going? And so it's that time of the year. I do know that everybody sort of freaks out about that question. Any last, as we transition, and you heard the bell there, which means it's time to go and wrap up because we're towards the end of the day. But as you look at maybe your freshman year, you talked about Dr. Guy opening, having you come out of your shell a little bit, and you talked about Miss Schumar the same way, and Miss Kilgore. And so as you maybe leave some words of advice for our incoming freshmen or for anybody that's in high school, looking back on it now, what are some things that, number one, you would maybe do a little bit differently, or two, things that you're like, hey, I would do this and don't worry about this?
I wouldn't be as shy at the start. With it being a small school, you're going to know everyone. Everyone's going to know you. And, you're going to find your group. And it really is like a family here. Just be yourself. But just don't be shy. Do your homework. Get your assignments turned in. Just be responsible.
Several of your classmates have said, be who you are, because it's really who you are. Be true to yourself. You don't have to be somebody that you're not. And that's probably something that as a freshman you're scared and timid and you're like just trying to fit in and not, stumble over your left foot as you walk down the hallway. And then as a senior, you're like, I really don't care if my hair's not too long and I need it cut before Easter this week. Or whether or not you just don't have that care of what other people think because you're comfortable in your skin and who you are and what you believe in, and that's part of the maturity process. So very wise words there. Any last suggestions, thoughts, concerns, memories to share? Anything before we wrap it up?
No, I'm good.
You're good. Well, I've embarrassed him enough. I've put him on the spot, and I'll just leave it at that. I could go on and on and on, of course, but I do thank you for sitting down and visiting with your dad, and it's probably the one that you were dreading was sitting down and visiting with me and answering. I wasn't too hard on you. I was nice to you. We'll leave it at that. Then we'll shut the camera off, everybody, and then we'll ask the real questions. No, I'm just joking. Until next week, hopefully you have a wonderful Easter. Enjoy a time with hopefully some family and friends, and we will see you next week, and it will be April, and we will be in the Mad Dash. Do we know the number of days? I ask everybody.
Like 29.
29 days until they graduate. That would be school days, 29 school days. There's not 29 days left. There's 29 days of school left for seniors. So until next week, we will see you back here on the 393 Legacy, a Gorilla podcast. Check us out on YouTube and Spotify. See you next week.